This is here.
I have some now. There's a lot of different.
Share, what I came from. I remember what it was like at the beginning of my career. It's so helpful.
Yeah. And actually, well, there was a good job. This now is like a number that they will develop.
I think that share, things I picked up along the way and learned,
Oh, you were
It's like 70% charge. Do you think it'll be enough juice?
I need a USB-C charger. I can plug it in.
I don't think it's just USB-C. Oh, it's
Why not? I don't know.
I still think it's okay. It'll last.
Sorry.
It's like they're very much. Yeah. It's very they have papers, midterms, finals, or whatever.
It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but you want to sit down?
Okay, so we're ready? Everybody's ready? You hear me well in the back? Because otherwise there are some seats also in the front. I don't want to come in the front.
We don't bite. I mean, sometimes,
Yeah,
but not today.
yeah. One, two, 1, 2. Okay, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. So we are super happy today to have this talk on Titans. The title is like very impressive. I think as students you should be, and hopefully we have also some external guests here, but as students you should be like super interested also in this talk, this panel in fact. So I just want to welcome our speakers to Pace University Silent School of Computer Science and Information Systems. So it's very long to say. And students, just be open to what you will hear, and also I hope you have lots of questions from our guests. So I will only introduce our panelists, and she will introduce the amazing speakers. So without further ado, this is Olga Bogomolova. She was working at PACE in the past, and I'm so happy that she's moderating this panel for us. Thank you, Olga.
Thanks, Christophe, for that intro. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing?
Great.
What?
Great.
Did you not get the treats, the snacks? Come on, guys. You got a little more energy here. How are you all doing?
Great.
Okay. Hopefully we can get a little bit better towards the end of the panel. All right. Well, I'd love to introduce the panelists to everybody. All the way to the opposite side of me is me, Joseph, the CEO of Touch. Next to him is Shin Jimak, the CTO of Touch. All the C's here. And the closest to me is Chris Peters.
Yes.
Chris Peters, and he's the chief data scientist. I don't know if it's C
And CPO.
and CPO, yeah. So all of the C's here today with us. Amazing. But before we get started with the panelists and then imparting all of their wisdom to everybody here, I am curious to know. So if you're a student at PACE, raise your hand. Awesome. If you're keep them raised. Thank you. If you're a student at Cyberberg, keep your hand up and then lower your hand if you're not. Almost everybody is a student here. Okay, cool. If you're undergraduate, raise your hand. Okay, cool. And grad students? Okay. If you're not from PACE or a student at PACE right now, raise your hand. All right, we have a couple of non-PACE students here. Great, so we'll try to do talks and ask questions that are would be interesting to everybody here. I would love to get started maybe with some more elaborate intros. I do have bios here, but I always love hearing it directly from the folks. So if we can get started with, and have a list here. So your name, again, if you want to. What is your current role? What you love about your job, and then or your role, and then one fun thing about you. If you can't pick one, I'll let you choose two.
Oh, yeah. The last two, sorry, two fun facts, or what was it?
So it's who you are, if you
Yeah.
want to repeat it
Yeah.
again. What is your role? Or just
Okay.
give a little bit of description of what is it to be a
Sure.
scientist.
Yeah.
And then what you love about your job.
Yeah.
And then fun fact.
Okay, cool. I'm Christopher Peters. I've been a data scientist for 11 years now. First at a company called Treehouse, an edutech company that teaches people to code for 2 years, from 2012 to 2014. And then after that, I joined Zapier in 2014 as the 9th employee, first data scientist, and helped build Zapier over 9 years. And then most recently, I am helping Touch, as its chief data scientist. And in terms of what I love about data, really, I love the puzzles involved with it and kind of untangling those puzzles. It's really what initially got me into economics. And so the discovery aspects of the job are really, that's where I get my dopamine hits, if you will, So, and I also, I like the detailed aspects of it. I mean, statistics and data science is the details that you have to understand are just a huge amount, and I actually enjoy that for what it is, And then I guess a kind of silly like fun fact about me is that I've actually been in the eye of a hurricane. So it's just a kind of random fact about me.
We have time at the end. You gotta hear about that. I wanna hear about that. Shiv?
So hi guys, my name is Shiv. I started my career at HackerRank. I've been a coder all my life. I love building things. I started coding when I was 14. It was back in 2004. And I love playing around with Linux, Windows. Around the time when I got into college, web was a big thing, so I decided to focus my energies on web. And what excites me most about building software is the value to the users. And web being the biggest platform out there, accessible for everyone, that is the best place to work on and create value for users. At HackerRank, I got an opportunity to work on full stack as well as data infrastructure. Many of you might know HackerRank is a community of developers. We use data science to figure out what are the best challenges or questions, programming questions we should give the users and get them back to the platform. We tried out growth hacking techniques. We tried out building machine learning models to recommend the best challenges to the customer, to the users. I've worked a lot on full stack and data infrastructure and a little bit of AI and ML side of things. I'm helping out Touch right now with building out their platform. So I kind of come in between sales and data science by building software to get the value to the customer, get the software to the customer. A fun fact about me, I'm a big foodie. I moved from India back in 2015, and I can't find really good chai here, masala chai. It's like milk tea. And if you order at restaurants here, you might find it a little bland. So I made my own mix of different spices to make masala chai at home, which I really love.
Can you guys hear me? Yes. Right. Before I answer that question, I also had a poll. How many of you guys have heard of Zapier? Half the room, okay. How many people have heard of HackerRank? Wow. Okay. How many people have heard of Touch? There's a small population there, okay. We got our sights set in getting the whole audience in someday. Cool, I'll introduce myself, just wanted to get a sense of the audience here. I'm Vinny Joseph, CEO, co-founder at Touch. Prior to starting Touch, I spent a little over 15 years in sales leadership roles for companies like Google, Oracle, and CA. And the number one problem that I as a salesperson experienced throughout my career was that sales outreach is extremely manual, which is why we ended up building Touch. And ultimately, I would say what really drives me personally and the thing that excites me the most about sales and marketing as a subject is people, and extremely curious about people and the problems people face and how they go about solving for them. And I would say in terms of a fun fact, I'm also an Ironman, also P2 pilot, actually no, P3 pilot, which basically means a paragliding pilot. And I've been really interested in athletics from a pretty young age. So any kind of sport that's out there, I'd probably give it a shot. So that's me in a nutshell.
Maybe slap in 2.5 in there. 2.5 facts. Awesome. So maybe we can start with our questions. And just, I forgot to mention to the audience, so we'll do about 20-25 minutes of me asking questions and a panel answering, and then we'll do about 20 minutes of you asking questions and a panel answering. So if you want to jot down things that would come up that you want to ask, that would be great. And then we'll leave a little bit of time at the end for everybody to be close. If you want to meet our awesome panelists in person, this could be your opportunity. Okay, great. So there's a bunch of kind of questions that were circulating in the group when I was chatting with those who came early. And I think the biggest one was just kind of curiosity about the market, but more specifically about the jobs. And so maybe I'll start, Shiv, with you first, and then I'll kind of move to Chris and then to me. But Shiv, what what is like a full stack developer? What does it entail, and how do you become a full stack engineer?
Yeah, that's a very good question because full stack engineer is supposed to know everything. A good way to get into full stack development is being a really good front end engineer. So JavaScript, React, HTML, CSS. If you're really good with that, you can build really good interfaces. Then there's a whole backend aspect of it, and backend could be anything, right? So simply put, backend would be your database and connecting your database to the front end, which is putting an API on top of it. If you're good with that, you can technically call yourself a full stack engineer. But even today, if you use ChatGPT, you can build most of the things. Ultimately, it boils down to whatever you're doing, you need to understand why exactly it is doing that. And if there are any issues, can you modify it really fast? I sometimes hear DevOps comes under full stack, so that you could set up servers and run your application. With GCP and Amazon Web Services, there are a lot of things out there which let you do the bare minimum of infrastructure and get started. And I think for full stack developers like this, I think with LLMs and with all the new data science tools out there, generative AI tools out there, I think the role of full stack engineer is going to evolve. Things are going to get even more easier. And the key would be to really understand at the metal why things work the way they work. So like if you build something using a ChatGPT or something else, you should be able to like change it based on the requirements and reduce our dependence on ChatGPT or LLM.
All right, so full stack essentially you start with the front end and then you work your way back to the back end, no pun intended there. And that ChatGPT usage is encouraged, but it is still critical to understand the fundamentals, which is what answer classes are for, right? In order for you to actually become a true full stack engineer. All right, great. All right, well, I think Chris, you're next.
Sure.
And the question, and I think there was kind of a burning question. I was like, what is data engineering? What is data science? How do I get into the job? So I'll give you my mic.
Yeah, so it's a great question, when I started out, I guess it was like 11 years ago, and I actually think for many companies, today this would be the same. If you're joining a small firm, you have to do everything that you can. You have to be a generalist. And so what that meant for me was when I joined, both Treehouse and Zapier, that was, them giving me access, to the database and saying, okay, we need a replica of our database so that we don't take down the production database, for example, when we're running like an analytics query. And so like that was data engineering, asking engineering, hey, can we have a replica, so I don't take down the site. And then, of course, there's also analytics database like Redshift and so forth, where you're often collecting an event log. So early on in my career, really data engineering and data science were fused together. I had to both collect the data and I had to organize the data. I needed to, work very closely with engineers to instrument A/B tests. That was before there were websites that had actual documentation you could kind of just give someone. And I think even despite that, it's important and valuable for data scientists to engage with the collection and organization part of the job. Really, data modeling can't strictly and shouldn't strictly be separated. The format and the quality of the data feeds into, determines the quality you can get as output from the model. So, these days, about halfway through my Zapier journey, I had the luxury of being able to hire actual data engineers, and that was 2018. I think data engineering had been a thing for like 2 or 3 years or so, since like 2015-ish, 2016-ish or so. And that was really great. These were folks who were former DBAs, they taught me a lot of really great things about like laying out data efficiently in the database that maybe I wasn't doing as efficiently before. But then like, what is data science? I mean, once you have the data collected and organized, you want to actually develop, formulate, compute a model. And I mean, ultimately our models, they're designed to help us understand something and to take better actions than we could have taken before we had the model. So I think on that side of things, this is a lot of it's talking with people and eliciting, what they understand, their problems, and then thinking about, if we understood something else, what would it be, and how would that change what we do and can take action on? So, and then that's not the records. That's not the data. So all of the records are there, the data is collected and organized there. So data science is something else. It's about the records are a resource that we have that we can glean information from, but also people that we're talking to. It's kind of like the front end of the process. You have to think about business requirements, economics, how the technology is going to affect people. And you also have to just be aware of the whole process, in terms of how, you could build the most beautiful model, but if the data doesn't represent what you think it represents, that output will be wrong. So you have to take responsibility for the entire pipeline of that. And so that's really how I would break down and describe data engineering and data science.
Before we go, can you give us an example of a model that you built? Or maybe if you're working in one for Touch right now?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of, right now, I'm working on a model for Touch, to match salespeople with people that would be looking to buy their goods in a corporate environment. So I'm thinking about what makes for a good match, Obviously, the person they would have to have a need, for the good, so it's how can I capture that? Is different industries, for example, have different needs, obviously, different, within, businesses, within industries, different businesses are going to be more amenable to, purchasing through a sales process. Other ones maybe not so much. So how can we guide salespeople to companies that are more amenable, to and that approach more. And then within companies, where's the person in terms of the organization? Do they have authority to make a large purchase, or do they not? Do they does their position and function at work necessitate the need so that they understand the product? Communicate the benefit within the organization. So that's just one model, and then whatever kind of outcomes I'm thinking of, that's actually something that I start with. I think of the outcomes that I'm looking to cause or help cause, whatever they are, and then I'm thinking about what do above average outcomes look like, and what do below average outcomes look like, and writing those down in order to separate the factors, the causal factors that would produce those outcomes. And so that's a kind of a peek into my process, and certainly happy to elaborate more too.
That's awesome. So there's a lot of juicy information there, but if I can recap, so essentially data science and data engineering are probably a little bit different. So data engineering is more getting data in, structuring it so that it's easy to then query and then sort of build models on top of that. Data science is more actually looking at your data, trying to make sense of it, plus talking to people that will also help you make sense of it, and then building models that can help you make better decisions based on the data that you have.
Yeah, I would add one thing to it, which is that I actually I mean, don't look at the data first. And I think that's actually an important thing to keep in mind. I look at the environment first. I look at the problem first. The records are just one resource that I have. I can get information from a lot of different places. I can go collect data that we don't have. So I never start with the data. I start with the environment and the problem. I think that's a really important way to kind of be successful in data science, because a lot of people actually do start with just the records, if you will. And I mean, that's very constraining, because if it doesn't have something important, you might just kind of overlook that and go past it. Whereas if you're looking at the environment and the problem, even if you don't, before you kind of look at the data, you can think about the data that might help you solve the problem. Then you can look to see if you have it. And so in my mind, in my experience, that's a much faster, efficient way to produce better outcomes than starting with the records themselves. Although most people, like 90% or so plus, will actually start with the records. Those are just a means to the end, really.
We could do a whole panel just on that. But write that down. Don't start with the data first, start with the problem. Okay, well, finally, we're getting to you. You have an incredibly important role at the company. You're the CEO. You were the original founder. Yeah, what is the job of the CEO? I know it's like wearing multiple hats at CLA, and what it feels like to be CEO of a tech company.
Yeah, it's, I would say, I think Elon Musk has used a really good analogy. It's like eating glass and pretending that you enjoy it in front of everybody. I think that's one way of summing it up. But when I think about it, ultimately, at the base of it is trying to figure out what are the problems that people face and honing in on a particular problem that you are really, really obsessed about. In our case, obviously, helping companies grow faster is the key thing that we're focused on. But when you think about it, there's, all human problems are of a similar nature, which is trying to go from point A to point B. Right? Like, all problems are of that similar nature. So I'm here and I want to be there. And along that journey, there's multiple ways of going about solving for that problem. And the reason why I say that, and to sort of share a little bit of an anecdote of where the itch to become a CEO really started was, I was at Google and this, 2021, I just started the job, and I came in, and the first thing that I did was, put on the hat of a data scientist and a data engineer, which is going out and researching all of these various revenue operation systems to understand what were the products that were selling the most to which individual in my particular region. So becoming really hyper-focused within my region and trying to, really bottle in who is the person, what is the problem that they face, and how are they going about solving that problem using the products that we currently have, and what are the trends within that. And so this is, it's a heavy lift for somebody who's in the sales role. So it took me, half a year to fully understand that market. And then once I started, catering to it as a sales leader, my team's goal was to get to $10 million in revenue by the end of the year. Fortunately, that year we did about $15 million in revenue. So our team kicked ass, and we were, obviously high-fiving each other at the end of the year, and it's great. 2 years, fast forward, and our team suddenly hit this cliff. We were going to hit maybe like $2 million in revenue as opposed to the $15 million in revenue. And what had really happened, and this is what I think is happening faster and faster now, is that the markets are evolving very rapidly. People's needs are evolving. That A to B, problem statement that I mentioned earlier is evolving very fast. If not on a weekly basis, maybe even on a daily basis. Shiv, you sort of alluded to LLMs earlier, and we see the rapid, innovation that's happening. It is because of innovation. It is because of really great technology that the A to B problems are being solved in more and more unique ways, in more differentiated ways, and ultimately as a result of it, users are benefiting, right? So, which is great. But on the flip side, this poses an interesting challenge for businesses. That is, how can you be very, very receptive and responsive to the market? I'm sure some of you are also facing similar challenges, right? Like, I mean, if I were to put myself in your shoes, the A to B problem is, you don't have a job and you want to get a job. So it's the same thing. It's like, how do you stay close to the market in such a way that you understand what is it that the market needs, and you're able to position yourself and market yourself as in the right light for the right problem. So I would say the base of it, starting touch, was just that. It was, we are, as we're continuing to go into the 2000s, the markets are evolving very rapidly. People's needs are evolving very rapidly. The way they're being met are evolving very rapidly, and hence, as a result, we as at Touch, we want to make sure that we are leveraging the power of data science, leveraging the power of engineering, are able to very intuitively help the market better understand the rest of the market, and ultimately cater to and solve the problems that they face more efficiently than anybody else. So,
I have like 15 questions that are coming up after this, but I do want to be mindful to the audience. And so one thing that came up, and you mentioned jobs before, that they want to get from point A to point B. So one thing that came up among the group is, they're curious about how to get those jobs, right? You mentioned, and I know a few of you shared that you have some tips and tricks. But I want to start with me here because I've personally experienced this process, and it is great. And something to learn, I guess, in sales and then transition into applying for everyday life. But if you can share your process for finding a job and you've seen success with it, and then if you apply it anywhere else too, that'd be great.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, maybe I can start with an anecdote. Susanna's heard this anecdote, I think, twice over already, so I'm sorry for you having to hear this the third time. But again, going back to the Google example, the year was about 2020, and I was facing fairly dire financial crisis, largely because of a very personal reason. And despite having a very prosperous decade, having moved to the States from India, and this financial duress put me in a position where I needed to go and basically up-level my income by a drastic amount, which basically meant that I had to, all the value that I captured in my own personal career, working at Broadcom for close to a decade, which I had left uncaptured, almost for 10 years, did not ask for a raise, I did not ask for a salary bump or anything like that. Whatever happened naturally was given to me and sort of continued to take, which basically meant that all this value that I built over a period of 10 years that I had not necessarily captured as from a market perspective was definitely a little off. So I think the first thing that I went ahead and did was actually just introspect. What is it that I'm really good at? One. And two, again, going back to the previous point of what is it that the market really needs. It is super important to have that sort of lens towards trying to better understand where the demand lies. And so in 2020, the cloud was obviously having a renaissance period and was growing pretty rapidly. AI was still not there yet. So the first decision that I made was I wanted to really go into cloud. Not having any experience, in the cloud space before, the first step was to actually build domain expertise by doing certifications in the cloud. I think you guys are doing something similar, which is you're trying to better understand what the market need is and building the skill sets for it. So from that point of view, it's great. The second piece was actually bringing immense focus on that domain. I said, I'm not going to do anything else except for cloud. Who are the top 3, top 4 companies that are my dream companies? So it was, at the top was Snowflake, second was Google, third was Amazon, and then fourth was Microsoft. And knowing this list, I've got some sort of focus and some clarity. What is my domain that I really want to go after? What are the dream companies that I want to pursue? And then based on those two understandings, I started first applying to Snowflake. And I got an interview, started to make a really good movement forward. But unfortunately, I had not at this point started to build an understanding of the cloud space. I just started my cloud certification, so it reflected very clearly when I was in these interviews that I was not overly great. Long story short, I ended up at the final stage of the interview, which went well, but at the end of the interview, I got a call saying, unfortunately, they decided not to move forward with me. Heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching, but that said, I think that is part of the getting feedback from the market, right? It's like, okay, what is working, what's not working? And I knew at that point that whatever I was doing was not working yet. Fortunately, I've also been able to get an interview with Amazon, and I started the process, and by that point, my cloud knowledge had started to consolidate a little bit more, and I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks passed by. By the way, Amazon's interview process is probably worse than a prostate examination, so don't recommend it to anybody. Nonetheless, it is definitely a really, really great learning experience. If I would strongly also recommend on the other side getting that prostate exam, because you know what, you'll upskill your interview skills. And so I started going through that process, and then 4 weeks in, I started to build a little bit of confidence that I might be able to get through Amazon. At that point, I was like, you know what, I think I would like to go out do the outreach to Google as well. And so this is a tactic that I use. Recruiters would usually hit us up, so just go into my LinkedIn inbox, find a recruiter, always get that warm referral. The applying to websites does not work. Applying to companies' career pages does not work. Make sure, especially in this really, really competitive environment, you find somebody within the organization and give you a warm referral, and still when you're going to get that first conversation. So leveraging that tactic, finding somebody at Google, I just was able to get an interview lined up. As soon as the interview got lined up, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to take no for an answer from Snowflake. I reached out to the regional VP of sales at Snowflake and said, hey, I might not be a great fit for this role, but I do strongly believe that I'm a great fit for the organization. And I had one of the common connections with the RVP, who I'd worked with very closely in the past, send a beaming recommendation that I had wrote. So obviously it was very, very extremely positively stated about myself. Again, be shameless, get those recommendations, write the recommendations yourself, make it to be make yourself shine. So I feel like don't be shy. That is one thing that I've seen many people very shy about selling themselves, and sometimes as a result, you actually miss out on the opportunity of really sharing some of the key strengths that you could bring to the business. So fortunately, the connection to the RVP also sent out a beaming recommendation to had written for him. 2 weeks later, I ended up getting an offer from Amazon and Snowflake and Google.
And you think?
And I ended up picking Google, largely because great workforce, the environment was just a buzz. Snowflake was definitely a great opportunity. They were going to IPO the next year. I basically just left $1 million on the table by not picking Snowflake, but still feel like that was the best move. Having worked at Google was, it was quite the experience.
Amazing. So I think a recap for everybody, there's no shortcuts. Unfortunately, there's no like quick 5-step to get a job, but there are a couple of things. So they could actually first start with the market, see what the demand is. It seems like it's an AI space, but if you are like super close to AI, I'm sure there's other areas that are booming. So look where things are at. Build your domain expertise. Take those courses. Do the certification training. Be focused. Like I see a lot of people don't do that. They just apply across the board, and then your resumes across the board, and always spending a lot of time building those resumes and stuff. So just be focused on what you're trying to do. And again, those warm recommendations. And you didn't share this with the group, but I know the original story of you getting your first job in the States, it was a cold outreach that ended up leading to a warm intro. So you just picked somebody on LinkedIn, many somebodies, and one of them said yes. And so, so it's sometimes it just takes a lot of effort, but yeah, and then get that part of intro. And you have your professors here, they know people too, so if there's a common introduction, you know, people to your professors because they can make those introductions for you. Yeah, and go for that. It's unfortunately a process, but it'll be better for it. Great, and so never kind of like running short on time, but Chef Chris, do you have any things that are like maybe specifically data science or engineering related that you want to share?
So I'm
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, I can talk from engineer's perspective. It's relatively easy to get a job as an engineer, but if it was 2021, you might end up with like 3 job offers or 5 job offers. Right now, market is very, very rough. My recommendation would be like spend 60-hour work weeks, work on projects that you are interested in. Don't work on projects because you want to add it to resume. Don't work on projects because you want to build a GitHub profile. Work on it because you want to understand something, because that is going to help you in your next interview. Interviews will naturally tend to move towards the things that you work on or you're interested in. Interviewers want to know what you're interested in, what are you working on. And even if some of the questions during the interviews don't go well, you can always show off that you have worked on various other things you learned. So I would definitely recommend working hard, spending 60 hours of work weeks, working on your own projects, learn the technology, and I think getting the job like that will be relatively easy compared to other people who are not doing that. One thing I want to add about internal referrals, a few of my friends told me, like with Fang, internal referrals itself is like 1,000 plus. So it will be very similar to applying from like externally without a referral. So probably you cannot depend on internal referrals right now just because of the market. But like working hard and like putting yourself ahead of everyone else will greatly increase your odds of success.
Yeah, so in terms of data science, and I'll second cold outreach. I actually sent long ago, I think it was like 2008, sent a cold message to an economist because I wanted to get a job applying econometrics. And that actually hooked me up with my first econometrics job. So definitely recommend that. And then networking, of course. You know, in terms of my first job, actually, a friend saw a CEO posting on Twitter looking for data scientists. It was before that term even existed, but they shared it with me because they knew I was interested in it. So I let people know what I'm looking for around. And then also in terms of networking, like Olga mentioned, talk to your professors. Think about who has connections, in the field you're interested in, right? Like not every person you network is going to be able to provide you the same amount of opportunities. Some will have more and some will have less. Think about who has more opportunities to share. Also put yourself out there. My bosses at Zapier, they read a blog post that I wrote just for fun, and I put on my blog and shared it to Hacker News, and people liked it. It kind of went to the top of Hacker News. So that was a way I kind of I networked. And then particular to data science, I would say, I had a background I do have a background in economics and econometrics, which, now data science is popular, and there's a lot of people out there that are, trying to get data scientist positions. So, like, what is going to differentiate you? In my experience, it's the hard things about the occupation that other people really just don't want to do. And I think a lot of it's like difficult, right? And for me, I actually really like reading statistics papers. I like reading econometrics academic papers for real and like actually applying that technology. I mean, to many people, that's kind of like a dry, boring thing. But like, to Shiv's point about putting in the effort, I mean, during work, after work, on the weekends, whatever, I was like, I've always been reading those, articles. And so I didn't shy away from the math, the statistics, the hard part that other people were always looking to shortcut. I didn't take those shortcuts, and I think that helped me stand out. I'd also say, like, just in particular, I think when I look at the market for data science, statistics is probably the most important knowledge, differentiating knowledge that people can have and don't, or is low, basically. So for me, if I'm looking to hire a data scientist, I want to know, what do you know about statistics? And in particular, at this point, I'm privileged to be a Bayesian statistician, which there's kind of basically two major flavors of statistics. And in my opinion, Bayesian statistics is kind of the future of statistics. And so that's something I've gone into, but I haven't, and then also connecting that to all other parts of the job as well. Obviously communication is important. Understanding the technology, understanding engineering, and being able to, the domain knowledge, work with people around you and reflect that. So I gotta boil that all down. I would say, network, think about the quality of your network, connections. Don't shy away from the hard parts of the task, and hopefully you come to enjoy those and like those, because I think that's really what builds the lasting differentiated value. It's difficult for other data scientists to compete with me because the vast majority really don't know these advanced topics in super depth, right? They're earlier on their journey, or maybe they've kind of taken that idea that I can shortcut things without really learning the mathematics and how to apply it. And so embracing the difficult to replicate parts of your job is a great way to ensure that you have skills that are in demand that others, but that are differentiated from others. So.
I want to add one more thing on this. So as it relates to network, we are 60 degrees of connection separated from everybody else on this planet. Just think about that, right? So that's the network. If you want to find the person that is looking to hire or is looking to bring somebody on, it's not that hard to find. The second thing I'll say is you can wildly differentiate yourself if you just assume the role. Just take the role. Nobody's stopping you, right? If there's a data designer role available, take it. Just check out their website. You'll find so many flaws that give you insights into how you can add value and start adding value. And I'm telling you, 99.99% of the people do not do this. So I would say two things. Find who's the person that is looking for the job, assume the role. That's it.
I also think there's something that the thread here, that failure is part of the game. You apply and then you don't get it and you get all deflated and you don't want to do it again. Or maybe you apply 5 times and you're like, okay, well the market sucks and I don't want to do it. But it has a lot of trial and error, right? Even hiring and stuff. So you just have to keep going at it. And each failure you use it as a good fuel to prove something to yourself, something in the world, right, that you deserve that job. Right, we are almost at time, and I really wanted to let you ask questions. I do have a couple more if you have none here, but yep, love it. Okay, I'll come to you.
Hello. Hello everyone. Hello panel team. I'm Rasika. I'm currently pursuing Masters in Data Science in Pace University. So my question is, as you mentioned, Shiv, that there are many fine companies who has internal of around thousands. Also, we can see that there are many peer companies who are already laying off the people, and so we are mostly targeting to we are also targeting to small tier companies as well. So in that case, I have seen many companies only have experienced people, hiring only experienced people. So in that case, what freshers should work on our skills, and for getting into small tier, what sector you suggest as a data scientist? There are many different sectors. You can see there are generative AI, recommendation sector, and another data science sector. So what you suggest that we should learn and bring up our skills in that sector? Thank you.
I can't answer that question from a data scientist perspective. I think Chris can answer that better. But what I can say is startups are always hiring. They're cash strapped. They cannot probably pay you as much as big companies can pay, and they cannot afford experienced people. What they would be looking for is someone who can join them and like, get the stuff done fast, relatively fast. So as long as you're capable to do things full stack as a data scientist, I hope there is a term called full stack as a data scientist, where you can do things end to end and solve a problem for them. I think they will be more willing to hire you. So I would say like if you're targeting such companies, you should work on such projects, demonstrate that you have done such a thing in the past. Go outside the context of, hey, you're working on this project, think of it from a perspective that what will you do to take this project and productionize it. And if you have good answers for that, and if you have shown some proof of you doing that in the past, I think that will increase your likelihood of success.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right that it's a little bit tougher market. Just interest rates are up, right? Like businesses kind of slowed down a little bit. We're in a little bit of a blip here. So don't be discouraged. Number one, I would say, I think this is the Federal Reserve's going to clear inflation. Things will normalize. We'll be back to it. And so if you're going through something that's not very good, just kind of keep going. Eventually it will improve. In terms of like data science, I would say I think it's good advice to like look at startup companies. I mean, these are companies that are starting. They're not as subject to kind of economic wins when they're very, very small because it's more about the overarching market, a longer term perspective, and they're often willing to take risks that other companies won't as well. And so I think if I was entering data science today, I would definitely be sending emails out to companies of interest, like not just trying to go through the front door. I look for companies that are hiring, even if they're not hiring for data science, and I would send them an email to whoever, or LinkedIn message, probably email, to whomever I could find. I would be trying to do internships as much as possible, and I think also I should have mentioned like practicing and having something that you can show as a demonstration of the quality of your work will be helpful, and then just kind of hang in there. Like don't let this kind of macroeconomic environment diminish your confidence. It's not you, it's the market, So, and I think the long-term trajectory for data science is fantastic. We're coming from a place where a lot of business is done kind of like they'll call it like gut shots or informally, and so when you look around, there's still a lot of processes like this, but now we obviously have massive compute, right? Transistor boom, cloud computing and everything. And from my perspective, I've seen what going from kind of informal gut shot type decisions to formal data-backed, model supported decisions does. It actually produces growth. It produces better outcomes because, misunderstandings and poor assumptions have been removed. So the field, I strongly believe, will actually create the growth that will fuel it. So I think this is a little bit of a blip that we're going through. So just hang in there and keep applying, keep sending out messages, and working on demonstrations and projects of your skill, and take the time to really delve into the difficult, parts of the task, so you can show that you can do something that other people who are applying, can't do.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for the talk. It was really informative. I got a couple of questions in that panel. What kind of people do you prefer working with, in terms of expertise, as well as soft skills that do come around in that organization to, find a better match for, the whole team. That's one. And the other one is like how do you suggest students to cope up with this evolving market that we're seeing right now, especially when we are, when there are undergrad students over the course of 4 years, there are so much evolution that students learning something in the first semester might not be as relevant, in the last semester. Same goes for the master students. There's a time frame is lower. Just how would students, catch up with that?
I can do the first question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as an organization, I think it would really depend on which company you're trying to apply for. But for Touch, I think there's three key things that we look for. Number one is a fit alignment or value alignment. And then the second piece that we really look for and cherish is skills gap alignment, and finally bringing diversity to the team. So from a value alignment perspective, what we really seek is people that are passionate about solving problems for businesses, especially since that's where we're already focused. Secondly, what we look for is people that are high energy, high integrity, and high intelligence. Ultimately, I think it's important that you're a strong problem solver. The second piece is obviously skills. Sorry. The skills is slightly less important, even though we do look for alignment on it. And then finally, it's diversity. But what I would also recommend is you kind of look for other companies, look for their sort of culture decks. Almost Netflix has one, Amazon has its leadership principles. It's not that hard to find what companies are looking for, and aligning to that I think is really, really critical. But as I was going through the process with Amazon, knowing what their leadership principles were and how my strengths aligned to that was, I think, one of the key reasons why I was able to move forward in that process. So, looking at what you want, and then which companies do you want to focus on, what are their sort of ethos, and where do you find alignment with them, would be really crucial. Second question.
Second question. I can add more to the first question. So I've been a hiring manager before. Almost all tech companies have a culture, culture tech. You should look into that. Two things I maybe look for is passion for the work that you do and skin in the game. And both are equal. One is missing. It usually ends up as a bad hire. So beyond skill, you should totally you should totally demonstrate that you're very passionate about the things that you're working on or you do work on, and show the loyalty to the job that you're going to work on. Because if that is not there, any small little problem that comes up, it's not going to work out. So I would say, yeah, these are two things that are very important. What is the second question?
Oh, how can we ensure we're learning, staying relevant?
So, the stuff that you learn in college is fundamentals, foundations, right? So I would say the stuff that you learned in the first year is not relevant anymore. It's very relevant because you studied that. You can study what you're studying in fourth year. If you didn't do your first year, probably your fourth year studies might not be relevant, or you can't actually understand what's happening. But unfortunately, the industry is probably moving faster than what you can learn in college. What I would say is pick whatever innovation interests you. It could be Web 3.0, it could be VR, it could be AI, ML, it could be anything. And try to understand what's currently happening in the industry. Try to learn what's happening in the industry. That is something you probably won't learn in university. And by the way, I'm not saying what you're learning in the university is not important. It's very, very important. If you don't have foundations, you're going to struggle in your career for sure. But you still have to be relevant to what's currently happening in the industry. And that's where the thing comes that, hey, you have to put in extra time. You have to put a lot of hard work to be relevant. And it's up to you what industry you're looking at. If it is AI ML, it could be you should talk to Chris. What you should be looking into, if it is something else, you should seek experts, mentors who are already working in the industry. There are a lot of such websites you can find. One I know, which is called TalkMate. I don't know if you guys heard of it, where you can find people who are already working in the industry, and they will be willing to talk to you. You can schedule a call with them, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. It's mostly free. Sometimes people ask for some little extra money, but usually those will be really, really helpful if you want to know what's happening in the industry.
What's the website?
Talkmate.io.
You guys get that?
Yeah, okay. Great question. I mean, in terms of who I like, I'm gonna answer like who I like to work with, and like from my perspective, like I like to work with people who are transparent in their work. So I think like especially, I mean, some folks, they're very like kind of protective of what they're working on. They're worried that they're gonna give like the wrong impression, if they show up, well, hey, I've been doing this for a very long time. And so it's like, I basically would expect that from like someone earlier in their career. But if they're more transparent and show me what they're up to, it gives me more of an opportunity to help. I can, and then also it engenders trust. I trust people more when they're like willing to show things like show your work, right? Like it's true in testing, university, academic environment as well. I want to understand how did you do it? Like, so something I really love is when data scientists, this is something I would always do, is I would always put the GitHub commit SHA link in Slack next to my analysis. When I show some, hey, look everyone, this is super important or whatever, I'm gonna put the GitHub link in there, so whoever really wants to like click in there and see what I did and check it and say, what is this, can do that. And so I like it when people do that. I trust them more. And then also I think the second part of that is, willingness to learn, I guess. I mean, some people I was super lucky. I came into industry like with a master's of applied statistics. That was like at the beginning of data science in 2012, and I'd already done like exhausted, LSU's econometrics courses, like 6 econometrics courses. So I was like spades coming into data science. And I mean, I worked with some data scientists who kind of recognize that and whoa, I want to learn from you. And so questions. I worked with other data scientists who didn't take advantage of that. And that blew my mind. That was like something I spoke to my partner about. I'm like, I cannot believe that I'm honestly like working with someone who isn't like just peppering me with interesting questions, basically. I guess that, that was puzzling to me. That for me, that was not how I was. I was always very much like, when I was around, my advisors or people that I knew were great practitioners or whatever, I mean, it was like, just like, whoa, can you please help me understand, like asking question after question. I mean, so I would do that. And then like, in terms of relevancy, I mean, I think there's this huge like shiny object out there like AI, and LLMs. And I mean, prediction is cool and interesting, like text output. I think that's great. The productivity gains are going to be extraordinary from that. But also there's another side of it too, which is analysis of structured data. So that's really what I focus on, is structured data more. This is like, will someone purchase a good or not? Like that could be seen as like a binary outcome. An LLM has a text output. That's different. So I learned how to do, analyze data, starting in like 2006, I guess, when I started my undergrad in econometrics. And I still use ordinary least squares. I mean, I think it should be called extraordinary least squares, actually. A total misnomer with the name there. I learned that in 2006. I still use that today. That is still a major core tool in my toolbox. All the economic thinking, I still use that. I mean, my career throughout my practice of data science over 11 years is like a sequence of me being like, wow, I never thought I would use that thing I learned in school, but yet here I am. And I can remember the professor talking about it. I've got notes on that. I've got a book related to that. And I actually think that was the true superpower. It's like I wasn't just doing a bunch of hype. I was actually going to what I learned and I was applying what I was educated on. And I'm still doing that today. Like, I mean, I kept going, and it's true that, like, I mean, I remember my statistical theory professor and advisor, Luis Escobar. He's amazing. You know, he's like, Bayesian statistics is gonna be the future. It's like, not today necessarily, but like pharmaceutical companies are doing it, but it's gonna be the future. And so like your professors will give you clues about how the market will evolve. And that it happened, basically. You know, so it wasn't the case that like Silicon Valley was out here like, oh, you know, putting a bunch of stuff out here that my professor like, you know, just wasn't aware of or anything like that. I mean, sure, yeah, like I was like, hey, random survival forest or a thing, and he didn't, you know, that was like a new thing to my professor, you know. But he was steeped in survival analysis, and like, that's technology that I used to create a huge amount of value. So it's like, I think the perception is that academia is behind, but actually the reverse is true. And I've been in Silicon Valley, you know, for a long time. I've read all about the history of Silicon Valley. So we've got this big myth, basically, in my opinion, where universities are behind and the market is so far ahead. I just think that's kind of biting the hype, right? That's the marketing. You know, Silicon Valley companies were good at marketing, you know, and that's actually the big surprise. I think that like 99% of people think it's that way. Like, oh gosh, you know, these companies are like, you know, pushing the limits and everything like that. In my experience, you know, in industry is actually typically behind academia, despite the common belief. So I've leveraged that, you know, to kind of just sell the education and the so-called boring stuff, actually. But oh no, actually, it's advanced technology after all. And how do you do it, you know, and everything? That's so amazing, you know. And well, I studied a lot, and I listened to my professors a lot, and I didn't really take shortcuts. I just read an academic article after academic article, and I actually applied it right there, you know. Article over here, computer here, problem here, industrial problem, over and over again. And so that, I think that would surprise a lot of people. But it kind of, I think it surprised me at first, but I learned it very quickly. I learned very quickly, oh my gosh, if you take the industry experts and you take the academics that are near them and you put them in a room together, it's going to be the academics actually who are going to be like saying like real insightful things and teaching the industrial people, unless the industrial people understand what I just mentioned and their friends are the academics.
I agree with you with some caveats.
Okay.
I'm gonna go on that tangent here. So this is book by Kai-Fu Lee, AI Superpowers, and talks about what is happening in artificial intelligence. So these LLMs that came out, it's not new. It's been in research for the last 20 years. Productionizing that is new, right? Companies like OpenAI invested a lot on that. So from like academics, research versus industry, the way I see it is, hey, you do a lot of stuff in academics, which can help you grow that discipline much farther, but industrial applications is also very important. And if you're looking for jobs, the industrial applications is what matters. But if you don't want to do research, you can definitely do research. But you have to think from a perspective that what is the value for a customer or some company that you can create. So from that perspective, I would still say that hey, talking to mentors, people who are working in the industry will give you a better perspective on things. But as I said, by no way I'm saying hey, companies are behind, universities are behind. It's just what's relevant versus not. You still have to understand.
Chris, I think we're at time, but I do want to encourage, so there's a bunch of questions in here. Are you gentlemen okay to stay a little bit longer to address those questions in like a, I guess, more circular, intimate setting so we can let folks go who need to go? Yeah?
Before everybody leaves, we should take a selfie.
Yeah, we should definitely do a selfie. Suggestion, do you want to do it? Should I do the honors?
All right, let's do it. You guys might?
Go ahead.
All right, let's do it.
We need some like
Some
energy and like some
energy,
excitement,
possible.
yeah, behind us.
All right, ready? One.
All right, come on, let's do like some woohoo!
Woo!
Yeah!
Let's go. No, you're not in here. Come. 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, let's go. Awesome. Okay, thank you guys.
Okay, so thank you so much to our wonderful panelists, and thank you so much to Pace University for organizing, especially Dr. Sharp, who did this pretty last minute. She's always willing to bring new innovative minds into Pace and help Pace young innovative minds go into the industry. So thank you so much for facilitating this and making magic happen. And then lastly, thank y'all. Like you should thank yourself and for being here, for trying to learn and network and be curious about your future and put some effort towards it. These folks are here for the next some minutes. Make sure you network with them and they'll ask you questions. All right, thank you all. Thank you. Yeah, come on here.
I'm gonna get some water.
Oh, yeah.
I create a nuance. I only places like are places that have nuance. I was able to like
This one.
yeah. For